Okay, my op-ed today over at HartmannReport.com is one of those ones that if you subscribe to, could just go over and see it at HartmannReport.com. It's free. There's no ads, or whatever. And it's one that you may want to print out and hang on to. And the reason why is because there are lengthy quotes in here from Ben Franklin, Thomas Jefferson, James Madison. I'm forgetting who else. George Washington, several of the founders declaring that they aren't Christians, that the United States was not founded as a Christian country, and that you have to look out for the religious fundamentalists because they want to corrupt our government. Oh, and John Adams. John Adams is the other one I'm quoting extensively in here. And they were unambiguous about this. They were outspoken, loudly outspoken about this. And the reason why I included all that in today's rant, which is titled, by the way, it's at HartmannReport.com, it's titled, SCOTUS has dissolved into a blur of BS, QAnon, and fundamentalist religion, is because that's exactly what has happened. I mentioned this yesterday in the first hour, but it deserves pointing out again. Yesterday, Neil Gorsuch authored a decision, a Supreme Court decision, in the case of a football coach by the name of Joseph Kennedy at a high school called Bremerton High School. And he was leading large prayer events in the center of the field on the 50-yard line. And in fact, this is from Justice Sotomayor's dissent in this case. She says, before the homecoming game, Kennedy made multiple media appearances to publicize his plans to pray at the 50-yard line, leading to an article in the Seattle News and a local television broadcast about the upcoming homecoming game. In the wake of this media coverage, the district began receiving a large number of emails, letters, and calls, many of them threatening. So this guy was out on the 50-yard line with 30 or 40 other people, loudly praying, and this is... And so Gorsuch just, literally lies. This is how Gorsuch opens. This is the first line of Gorsuch's decision. Petitioner Joseph Kennedy lost his job as a high school football coach in the Bremerton School District after he knelt at midfield after games to offer a quiet, personal prayer. And then Gorsuch goes on 14 times to repeat that lie that this was a quiet prayer. These are some quotes from Gorsuch's decision. Quote, his decision to persist in praying quietly without his students. It wasn't without his students. They were all gathered around him. Offered a quiet prayer of thanks. No, it wasn't a quiet prayer. Offered his prayers quietly while his students were otherwise occupied. No, they were in a circle around him. Felt pressured to abandon his practice of saying his own quiet on-field post-game prayer. It wasn't quiet, and it wasn't his own. No one joined him as he bowed his head for a brief, quiet prayer. Not true. The district disciplined him only for his decision to persist in praying quietly without his players. A lie. This is a lie that Gorsuch told. And then Gorsuch says, because they fired this guy for quietly praying, and by the way, Sotomayor puts a picture in the Supreme Court decision, which I've never seen before in my life. In fact, I think this is the first time I have ever seen a Supreme Court decision, and I don't know, maybe Paul in Woodinville or some other Supreme Court expert wants to correct me on this, but I can't think of any other Supreme Court decision that literally, where the author of that decision lies 14 times. But Neil Gorsuch did, because he wants religion supported by government. There was a huge debate between Jefferson and Madison. Jefferson thought that if the priests, if the religious folks ever got control of government, it would destroy government. Madison, who was a good Christian, Jefferson was not a Christian, he was a deist. Madison was concerned that if government ever started funding religion, it would corrupt the church. So Madison was afraid that government could corrupt the church. Jefferson was afraid the church could corrupt government. It turns out, as Neil Gorsuch proved in this decision yesterday, both were right. And this is something that was spoken out against by Thomas Paine, by Ben Franklin, by George Washington, by, the list goes on, by lesser-known people like Dr. Benjamin Rush and Gouverneur Morris. And basically the only Bible-thumping Christian, fundamentalist Christian back during the founding era, and you'll find lots of quotes from him, was Patrick Henry. And Patrick Henry was a hypocrite. He was the largest slave owner in the state of Virginia. The guy who said, give me liberty or give me death. He was their pet fundamentalist Christian, their very own Lauren Boebert, who, by the way, Sunday was in a church in Colorado campaigning during church services, and she said, I'm sick and tired of this separation of church and state junk. She said the church is supposed to direct the government. Really?